rolling?
Camera rolling.
Lovely. You happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Looks lovely. Right. I'll do the whole
Yes.
Matthew interview. Take one. That was brilliant. Hi, Matthew.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Jacob. How are you?
I'm very good. Right. You looking forward to your interview?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, first of all, who are you?
Um,
Explain for our viewers, what are we here for today? Why are we interviewing you?
so we are having a discussion about the soundtrack for FALLOWFIELD and about my little world here, for lack of a better term. Yeah, this is where all the magic happens. So ask away.
So, as a filmmaking practitioner, I've put you down as a composer slash musician slash multi-instrumentalist, audio engineer, sound designer. Does that sort of encapsulate your
Yeah,
practice?
yeah. I'd say if I have to like sum it, I'd probably say I'm a composer and producer, but I do a bit of this, bit of that. So a bit of sound design and mixing here and there, bit of surround mixing. You know how it goes, but basically anything I can get my hands on that's a good project that I
Lovely.
enjoy.
So I'm interested to know, where did this start for you? Have you always been interested in music since a young age, or is it later on in life you came into it?
Oh God, I've been like music has been my passion since I was about 8. So I started by we had a piano in the house where I grew up in, and it was really old. And do you remember in primary school? I don't know if you guys had to do this, but did you have to learn the recorder? Did you? Yeah. Did you have to learn?
I think so. Yeah, we had a few lessons.
So we had a little recorder thing, a little recorder orchestra, and they'd give us sheet music for it, and I learnt the notes and I'd take it home, and I'd play it on the piano, and that was my first experience in music. So then, as I got into it more and I learned the piano more, had some lessons, and I did like more classical stuff, and then as I got older, I got into the guitar and different types of music. But I've always been kind of drawn to more like classical music and film scores and more compositional stuff rather than like, say, rock music or things like that. I love that sort of music, but in terms of what I write, what I create, it's more that sort of stuff.
So now I guess at this stage, what makes you think you want to dedicate a good portion of your career or the rest of your life to making music? What is it about it? Why do you want to do it? For some reason, it just resonates with me. I just understand it and I feel it. I feel like I express myself through it, which sounds like such a cliche, but it is true. So for me, I just feel like if I was working a 9 to 5 in an office, I'd probably go slowly crazy. I'd much rather do this and make music and do what I love, which is why, you know, as you guys I'm sure know, we're willing to put the crazy hours in and live skint and everything like that to do it, because we love it. So briefly describe what the past 5 years of music has been like for you.
So, oh wow, it's been, so the last 5 years, that was just after I moved to Manchester, so that would have been when so music has always been my passion, but that was when I kind of dedicated to it. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I could have done a number of things, and I think like everyone just sort of thought, what do I really want to do? And I guess I had some jobs here and there, and I just kind of, it led on to, well, I've got this passion for music. It sort of seems like the obvious thing to try and do. So I went to college and I studied music tech, and then I went to uni after that and studied songwriting and composition, and now I'm here. But I did all sorts. So I started off in a band and making music that way, and
shameless plug. What's the band name?
Well, we're no longer together, but it was called Nara, and there will be a best of tape coming never, maybe. But that was like my education in music, because I'd done like classical music and grades and stuff on the piano, but that was the first time I really was like creating my own music. And then after that, the band kind of fell apart, and I didn't enjoy. I loved the making music part, and I loved the creativity, but I didn't enjoy the touring, and I didn't really enjoy being on stage too much, to be honest, and everything that came along with it. and all the social media stuff. So I thought, is there a way where I can create music that's a little bit more abstract, where I don't need to write choruses, and I can just have a lot of fun on my own?
I reckon that's a similar struggle to what young creatives and young musicians think about these days, especially when it comes to like potentially fame and people coming up to you on the street, touring, stuff like that.
Not that ever happened to me.
Not that it ever happened, but like the idea of just making music or making art because you want to make art, and then it being subjected to this like statistic and figure, and you have to do this and this and this and this.
For sure.
Do you think that kind of takes the joy out of it a little bit?
I think it can do if you let it. I think it's the music just has to be the most important thing, and like, I mean, I'm constantly catching myself where I'm trying to be ambitious and like make a career of this and do some really great projects and make some great music, but it's really important that as important as it is to network and to push yourself and be ambitious, if you're not, you've got to keep the art like the most important thing. You've got to enjoy it.
Yeah, do you feel like you found that balance a little bit more now?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the lucky thing about my job now is it takes away a lot of the kind of when you're more of a performing artist, you've got to put a lot of emphasis on like social media and marketing and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I actually found a lot of it interesting, but for me it got to a point where it sort of takes away from the music a little bit. In that you are spending less time doing what you really want to do, which is making music. And it's why I love this job, what I'm doing now, because my job is solely focused on creating music and mixing music or producing and making sound, and it's really, really fun. And I love the freedom. I love the freedom of I don't need to write a chorus. I don't need to make sure it's under 5 minutes. I can do exactly what I want, and that to me is like so liberating as a musician.
I think that leads me very nicely into my next question, which is, what is the most exciting thing happening in your life right now in terms of your music career?
Right now, I'm really enjoying this.
Oh, brilliant!
Because it's my
good
first.
Answer.
It is a good answer, and it's my first feature-length score, and that is exciting, and scary, and challenging, and amazing. There's so many things to do. It's a bit of pressure, but I really, really enjoy it. I love doing new things and new challenges. It teaches you a lot about what you can do, and I feel like my best work is always when I like push myself a bit or I'm a little bit uncomfortable, and I've been really enjoying it. Good.
And we were just talking just before shooting about our DIY setups, so to talk. So could you briefly just go through a bit of your setup here? Because as you said, feature-length score, the film's going to be just over an hour.
Yeah.
And this is what you're dealing with. This is what you're working with. So tell us a bit around your setup.
If we start off down here, I've got this is kind of like my nerve center. So this is my laptop that I run my laptops into the void with software and stuff like that, and it's doing very well. Then I've got like, this is a little interface here just for powering the speakers and stuff, and then over here I've got some studio monitors and a monitor for my computer. I've put them on books to absorb some of the sound and to have it more head height. Here I've got my drawer of many different things.
The drawers I love. They're just...
I've got everything in here from like guitar strings to like super glue. Everything there. I've got little bits and bobs. So I've got drumsticks, and I've got a maraca and a microphone and another interface. I've got all my stuff down here, and then I've got a little keyboard on here. This is for like controlling software instruments. And then this is my baby over here. This is my nice synthesizer that I love very, very much and is amazing. Love it. And then I've got other instruments kicking around the flat. So I've got like a bass guitar there. I've got like I've got more guitars in there. There's a cello bow down here, which can be quite fun. Just little bits and bobs. I love sound, and I love trying to manipulate sound and do different things. So it could be quite fun to like take this and I don't know, use it on a bass,
It's
which,
quite-
as you can see by the
Yeah.
fact it's ruined.
It's quite an interesting workshop you have here. I remember the first time I came around, you showed me that's bow, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing.
But there's a lot you could do. I think one thing that's so interesting with like music production now, and it's kind of going this way with you guys, I'd imagine as well, is it's so much more accessible. You can do so much from home, and I love so. I'll give you an example. There's stuff that I love doing where I love to record any sound that I hear that's really interesting.
You
So-
do this a lot of time on set when you've been with us shooting.
So like there's a track on the score called Wasteland, and it's got a sample in it from ticking, and this is from, I found like an antique clock shop in Austria, and there are all these like cuckoo clocks on the wall, and I've just recorded it on my phone. I'll like hold it up here.
That sounds great in headphones.
Yeah. And it became a part of the score. So there's so much you can do from just a phone and a laptop, and I think it's now best time ever if you're like a DIY artist or filmmaker or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you went into a little bit there, but I was going to ask for you to just describe your creative process and describe how you approach these projects.
Sure. So I think for me, what I try to do is I need to find like the soul of the project. So for me, it kind of came from reading the script and understanding the story, and at the core of it, for me, was like a relationship between two sisters that had broken apart, and that to me was like the kind of soul of the movie. And then trying to find something that fits that soul within the context of what's happening on screen. So for me, that was like my starting point, and I normally start on the piano because the piano is my favorite instrument, and I will find something, melody, some chords, anything, and I will go from there. Normally, I like to not have too many rules, as long as it fits to the picture and it fits the soul. Then I think anything goes. I think that music can be so creative, and there's sound and music in so much stuff that you can find, and oftentimes if it's just one note, it can be beautiful. So I try not to limit myself too much, but it will generally start on the piano, and it will always start trying to find the soul in the project, and to try and find what the theme is. So for this project in particular, it reminded me a lot of My Brother. So the track that really influenced the score, the ballad of Abel and Sarah, that was written about my little brother. So I guess finding that emotional theme and connecting to it yourself, for me, it just means that hopefully when audiences see it, it will mean the music emotionally connects and resonates with them, because it was written with that in mind, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Lovely. Next question's quite big. If you just want to tilt your chair this way a little bit.
Sure. Like this?
Yeah, there you go. The microphone's getting more of your voice.
Okay.
So, if everything failed, your flat burnt down, your work was discredited, you had no instruments, you had no way to make music, how would you approach this? As a down in the ditches, struggling artist, what would be the one personal philosophy that would keep you trudging on despite?
Philosophy. Oh God.
I guess another way of asking that is like, what is your biggest drive? Or what is the one passion that keeps you going?
So, I think for me, I try to enjoy the little things, I guess, in life, in general. So, for me, I like to cook, and I like to read a book, and I'll later on I'll probably sit in front of the TV with the missus, and I love doing the little things like that. So I think if I kind of lost everything and I had to try and find a way to create music, I would probably try and do it as simply as I could. Try and make music on my phone out of little recordings, or build little street instruments and stuff like that. But yeah, so that in terms of music, make it really simple, and because it was more of a life question, I guess enjoy the little things, and I try and think about today as much as possible, which I'm really bad at. I always like to plan, focus, and I try my best to not do that as best I can, and just focus on what am I doing today, what am I doing this evening, and I guess if your flat burns down, you can apply that of, well, what can I do today that'll be fun. You know, let's not worry about all of your personal possessions being destroyed and losing
all my
very
guitars,
expensive software and instruments.
all my pianos. It could be an interesting challenge for you to say, okay, let's make some music with like a pencil.
Oh yeah, God yeah.
Just smash it against the table and see what noise it can
Yeah,
make.
for sure.
It'd be an interesting challenge.
For sure, make music without any instruments or software instruments. That's an interesting challenge.
Maybe one for after Fallowfield. So to get onto the topic of Fallowfield a little bit more, what do you hope to get out of the project?
I just want something that I'm proud to have the music on, and I want to be part of a project that's really creative and that I find really, really interesting, and I just want everyone to enjoy it who sees it as best as possible, and everyone who made it to be proud of it, and I just want to have something that I can look back on, because it's my first feature score, so I want it to be something that I can rewatch and think, yeah, it almost feels momentous because it's the first score, and because of that, I'm determined to try and make it as good as I can, and for it to be something I can look back on and go, that was amazing. It was so fun, and I'm really happy with what I created, and it was challenging.
Definitely, yeah.
And there was blood, sweat, and tears put into that. You know,
I've been thinking back on this quite recently, actually, doing a lot of reflecting on the movie, and I've described it as sort of a personal milestone in the sense that it's my longest movie. It's going to be a cinema release. It's like quite a marker of like, this is a big point in my career, and this is what happened after it. So in terms of it's being your first feature and stuff like that, has there been any point in the project where you maybe felt a bit burnt out and thought, oh, is the struggle worth it? Is there any point of have you reached any point of reflection where you've gone, oh, what is this going to mean for my career going forward?
Oh, for sure. I think I know it's momentous. It feels momentous because I know it's my first feature, and it's really challenging me, and I'm doing it on my own, and that's scary and fun and amazing. But I haven't had the chance to properly sit and reflect, especially because there's so much more work to do, and I think that'll kind of come after. It hasn't quite set in yet. I think, and I don't think it will until I see it, until we go to the premiere and we see it for the first time
on the big screen with that music blaring out.
Exactly. But it does feel momentous, similar to you actually, where you're saying it's your first feature. It feels like a kind of like you're putting a marker down almost. Feels a little bit like that with me, because most of my work has been more sound design and stuff, and I've really wanted to get into composing. Like from the get-go, that was my goal, like to get in any means necessary and then sidestep into composing. So it does feel like a special moment, you know, and it's exciting. I'm not reflecting on it, and I'm not going to. I'm just going to enjoy it, and
I like that,
and make as good music as I possibly can.
That's a very good.
Make something I'm proud of, and then I can reflect and enjoy it once it's done.
Yeah. So this may defeat the purpose of what you've just said. I was going to ask, how has the journey been for you so far? So the good, the bad, and ugly up until now. What has that been like? So
it's been. I often find like music and creating music, it's always up and down. You know, it's sometimes you sit in here and I'll make more progress in 20 minutes than I do in 2 weeks. Sometimes things just kind of come to you, and initially writing these songs went really well, and I got them really, really quickly. But then when I'm coming to arrange it and I'm putting it in the software and I'm recording, and it just doesn't quite sit right with me. That's been the challenge about making sure that you don't let it knock your kind of confidence. And I feel like being like doing projects before this and also like performing before this, it almost was good preparation, because it teaches you that that you can't really force it, that it just comes naturally, and you have to just stick with it. And eventually, if you stick it out long enough and you don't get too perfectionist about it and and accept it if it doesn't go well, if you listen to something the next day and you think that sounds shit, that's fine, then it does eventually come.
Absolutely. Yeah. What would you say is your favourite thing about Fallowfield?
Oh, God. It sounds like the obvious answer, but the story. I love the story. It was the thing that kind of attracted me to the project, where I read the script and I immediately thought, this is such an interesting project and an interesting story. And the story itself is, at its core, so simple, but it's quite original in its approach. I can't think of a project that's depicted grief and familial relationships quite like this. And it's got such a kind of magical air about it, in a way. It kind of reminded me of the book. I read a book just before I took the project. I don't know if either of you two read it. It's a famous book. It's called Kafka on the Shore. And it's a really quite surreal, magical book. And it's got a very coming of age, emotional story. And it sort of reminded me of that. And that book kind of became my favourite book I've read halfway through it. And it's kind of, it feels weird that this project sort of presented itself to me at that time, because it was almost like the perfect time for me to be super receptive to it. And yeah, I love it, because the best stories are always simple, and it's so simple, and the way it's depicted is really interesting and magical and trippy and scary and freaky and unnerving. And I love that. Any kind of jarring emotion for me is really fun to try and recreate in music, because you've got to do the antithesis of what you're taught of making things sound nice.
Yeah,
you know.
I like that.
Yeah.
Just one last question to finish off, and I think it's kind of two questions in one, because you said something about the antithesis of making music, and so I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of your approaches to making music for Fallowfield is quite experimental. And then I guess off of that, I would say, how much of your, let's say, classical training in music in school and such have you applied into Fallowfield? How much is new? And just to finish off, what would your message be for young people, younger generations trying to get into music?
Oh God. I feel like if you're pursuing anything creative, your creative experience, so everything from your background and your learning and everything you listen to, in my case, or watch if you're a filmmaker, it's kind of a part of you. So I think although I kind of grew wary of the classical training when I was a kid, it's always a part of me, and it's always there. I never really think about it, and I never lean into it to make music. If anything, it's the total opposite, where I try my best to not have rules, to not have limitation, and to do what feels right rather than do what theoretically this is what should be done. But it's always going to be a part of me, and always going to be there. I mean, the way I play the piano is rooted in that technique, and so it must be there. I didn't lean into it at all for Fallowfield. I lean more into what can I hear when I watch the scene and I listen to it, and what instrument, what sound, what notes can I hear. But it's always a part of me. In the same way that the movies that you guys watch and loved, that resonated with you growing up, and your projects that you've been involved with would have really influenced you, whether you like it or not today, because it's a part of you. And so it's similar to that. In terms to advice, I don't really feel in the position to give advice to young musicians. I would just say to not get too bogged down in everything outside the music. That the most important thing, no matter what you're doing, is music and the love that you put into it, and the passion and the creativity. That all of the other stuff is always secondary, and it doesn't matter if you're a performing artist or if you're a composer or an actor or a painter, anything creative. The second you sort of let all the other stuff become the priority, I feel like your art's going to suffer. So do what you love, that you're passionate about, and it will be obvious to everyone that hears it that's there. And then find a way to do the other stuff after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Amazing, that's pretty good. What would you say to those going to watch Fallowfield then?
Have fun.
Have fun.
Enjoy it.
Lovely. Well, Matthew, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And cut.